Save those shenanigans for later. Coming up here within a couple of minutes, we have a very unique special guest. It's I don't really know how to set this guy up. His name is Luke Ford. Luke and I, I've met Luke online on Facebook over the last year or so. Luke and I were both raised in the same conservative Christian organization. We were both raised in a conservative Christian Protestant American Australian global church when we were youngsters, and whereas I lost my religion completely a long time ago, Luke Ford has taken a somewhat different path, and I know in the early 1990s he was involved in the pornography industry. I think as a blogger. I think the term "most hated man in porn" has come up, and more recently, or not more recently, in the last decade, has converted to Orthodox Judaism. So it should be a fairly interesting conversation tonight, somewhat off the wall. We're looking forward to hearing from Luke any minute now. So go ahead, Luke, call us back again, and we'll get you on the air.
Fantastic.
How was that for an intro? Was that at all coherent, Paul?
That was quite coherent. That definitely got my interest. I mean, back where I come from, I would say this is a live one.
As far as the show goes, it's pretty unusual,
Yeah,
I think, the posits of the subject matter.
Yeah, I am very glad that this gentleman is called in, because it is really sounds like he's had a unique course in life.
Exactly, and you are listening to one of the most independent radio stations in the world, KCVU Radio 1190.
Exactly. You're not going to hear this on Clear Channel.
Well,
you think Clear Channel did get in? Do you think?
Hey, now we're looking for an interesting conversation with a really unique guest. So, my listeners out there, if you're sitting in front of a computer, go ahead and Google, check out LukeFord.net. Okay, LukeFord.com is a totally different animal, but LukeFord.net is a good place to start learning about our guest, Luke Ford. For my, all right, here's the phone ringing. Hello. Hey, Luke, I'm going to have you on the air here momentarily. If I lose you, call me back.
All right, here we go, folks. Here we go. We're trying to work some magic here. Is this? I'm not too sure if this is Hobbit magic. This might be Gray Magician magic, but are we live here? Do we have Luke on the line?
Hey, Luke, are you there?
Yes.
Hey. Awesome. We pulled it off. All right, I'm going to hang up this phone here, and you should still stay. Actually, I'm going to leave the phone right where it is.
Yeah, let's not take a chance.
All right, so first of all, let me briefly set this up one more time. Luke Ford is a prolific blogger. I think if you go to LukeFord.net, you'll discover that his moniker is Your Moral Leader. Now, I got to know you, Luke. I learned of you because I was actually one evening after a few barley beverages, I was defacing the Ellen White Wikipedia page, and I got shut down pretty quickly by the Wikipedians, and somebody in the course of that little adventure referenced Luke Ford just obliquely, and I looked you up and discovered that your father was a fairly prolific person in the organization I was involved as a child, and then kind of followed your blogging, and we became Facebook friends. So Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So briefly, I guess we'll just jump right into the action here. I do have a bit of an outline to try to make some coherence here. The first question I have for you is, let's talk about you, Luke, in the context of your dad, because that's kind of how I stumbled onto you as a reference to your father.
Well, my father's a Christian theologian and evangelist. So those are two distinct roles. The theologian is an academic, so my father has 2 PhDs in fields related to Christian theology. He did a PhD in rhetoric at Michigan State University in the 1950s, and then in the early 1970s he did a PhD in New Testament studies at Manchester University. So I'm the youngest of 3 kids, but I grew up as a preacher's kid, and that's had a very definite impact on me. My father's a controversial man. People either love him or hate him, and he was a lightning rod for controversy in the Seventh-Day Adventist Church.
Sure.
And he eventually ran into enough controversy that the church held a big conference about what to do with him. It was called the Glacier View Conference in Colorado, and I was there in the summer of 1980.
At about what age were you?
I was 14. I just graduated 8th grade.
So,
yeah.
That's a good intro there. So, briefly, before we move on, could you describe kind of the nature of the theological issue that was at stake that your dad was championing? I said briefly, dude. And first of all, I'm not an SDA. I'm just a guy on the radio, and I mean.
Well, it wouldn't make any sense to anyone.
Exactly.
In all likelihood, who's not an SDA. So I'll just make it like a general human point that in every group that you're a part of, every group has rules.
Yes.
And if you violate essential rules that are essential to the identity of the group, then you're going to be pushed outside the group, and that's what happened to my father.
So let's follow up on that with what was the impact. I mean, I kind of have a sense of this, but in your words, what was the impact on the Seventh-Day Adventist Church of that particular little issue before we move on to more important things?
It tore the church in two, and many people left the church and stopped donating money to the church, and it definitely damaged the church.
Sure.
And it also damaged my family and my father.
That was
myself.
The follow-up question to that was, well, before this, I can just vouch that as a kid in the 1970s, I can remember the name of your dad being tossed around, in church and Bible studies and prayer meetings, in the car, and I think I even remember seeing a fist fight that your dad's name was being hurled around in the context, and that was me as a little kid. So it's a fact, dude. So the follow-up here is impact on yourself and your family.
It was enormous because at this point I didn't have any non-Seventh-day Adventist friends. I'd only gone to Seventh-day Adventist schools. I'd mainly just lived within Seventh-day Adventist college communities. All my friends were Seventh-day Adventists. That's what I knew. And so what was familiar and comfortable to me was suddenly destroyed, and we had to move out of the church and go our own way. And that was very lonely. So I eventually ended up in public school, and I never went to one party in public school until I graduated. So
you were just like barely a freshman in high school at 14.
I just graduated 8th grade at 14, then I went to 9th grade at an evangelical Christian school, and then 10th grade I entered public school for the first time, and so that was a real culture shock. So
let me just do a little thing here. We're you're listening to KCVU Radio 1190. This is Geoff Anderson and Punkrock Paul, live on the radio tonight with a gentleman named Luke Ford. You can check out Luke Ford at lukeford.net if you've never heard of him. So before we keep on marching here, that covers those initial points. The second thing that caught my attention when your name came up as just a person who kind of surfing the web, and you run into a person who has some references of mild interest, was the context of you in the context of the porn industry. What I mean, I understand you're the author of a book called, I think it was The History of X. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, can you set that up a little bit for us? What was your position in the? That's not a good word. What was your role? What was your?
I was a seminal blogger.
Very good, sir.
That's my colleague Punkrock Paul. He's.
So I was
seminal blogger. You means you were an early blogger in the porn industry at that time. Can you?
Yeah, but even before that, I decided to write a book on the industry in the fall of 1995. And then I eventually started blogging in 1997, and I kept uncovering these great stories about HIV infections in the porn industry, and being first to publish the news on my blog, and this would cause sensations, and I got a lot of media attention, a lot of visitors from it, and I suddenly realized in the fall of 1997, hey, I can make my living just from blogging about the porn industry. And
did you?
And I was off and running.
So for a while there, you did make your living with that blog with blogging, kind of a social page for gossip about the porn industry, right?
Yeah, it was a muckraking page about various scandals in the porn industry, and it was like the Matt Drudge of the porn industry. So I made most of my living from 1997 to 2007 writing about the sex industry.
So your living came from advertising on your